So yeah, for you guys that are on Zoom, because this one is a CE credit class, in order for me to give you the CE credit, your video has to stay on. Basically, think of it as no different than if you were sitting here in the classroom with me, you have to be in the classroom for 90% of the class, or else I can't give you credit. So the same concept goes for online. I have to be able to see that you were there in attendance. I guess you don't necessarily have to be paying attention, but just like, so my son is sitting here doing other things on his computer, so.
I guess question, like let's say hypothetically I have a showing, I'm at an appointment, but I have my camera on the whole time on me. Does that count? I mean, I don't know if that would happen, but
yeah,
that would count. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I just have to be able to show that the camera was on. So Jason, Abe, and Tracy, if you guys want to be able to get, no, I'm just calling them out now. If you guys want to be able to get the CE, you got to turn your camera on, so that if you just want to be here and not get CE, then I guess don't turn your camera on.
This is for education.
You're a psychopath.
Yeah. You just like to listen to me, I guess. So, all right. So we're gonna, what?
You're gonna be here. You might as well.
I know you might as well get the CE, but so far they're not turning their cameras on, which is, I guess that's the point, is it shows that they're not really paying attention, which is the point of why the division said that.
Smart.
Okay, so also for you guys that are on Zoom, I need you to throw into the, well, I'm gonna wait because I got another person joining there, actually two at the same time. So I'm gonna wait to say it. So they're on. All right, looks like they're on. Perfect. Okay, so for you guys on Zoom, so just a reminder, camera has to be on. If you want the CE, if you don't, then don't turn it on. Put your name and your license number in the chat box for you guys on Zoom. So throw your name and license number in the chat box so that I can give you the CE as we go through it. And then, so also just as a reminder that this is, you'll either get 12 hours of CE for this, or you'll get 0 hours. Here they come.
I know.
So you'll either get 12 hours of CE or you get 0. And so it's 6 classes. That's what?
So that's why I have to shut up.
Yeah,
It's all or nothing.
it's all or nothing. So you either get 12 hours or you get 0. So it's going to be 6 classes. So the next 6 classes that I teach starting today. So today is the CMA. Next week will be Wednesday, Thursday. So typically our classes are Tuesday, Thursday, but next week will be Wednesday, Friday. Did I say Wednesday, Thursday? Wednesday, Friday, because Tuesday is Summit. Thursday they are doing what?
Hey.
We get a token female in here? I know, I'm just kidding. So next week's Wednesday, Friday. The reason it's Wednesday, Friday is Tuesday is Summit. And then Thursday, they've got a blood drive scheduled in this room during the class. So we had to do Wednesday, Friday next week. So next week's classes will be seller packet on Wednesday, Repsy with Rob on Friday. Then the next week on Tuesday, Thursday will be the Repsy workshop. So there's 2 different Repsy classes. A lot of times people will not come to one of the 2 because they go, oh, I already did that. There's 2 separate ones.
What's the difference?
I almost said my inner voice almost betrayed my outer there. So the difference is one is a workshop of like how to fill it out. The other one Rob teaches, which is like, let's tell you.
Going through. Okay.
And the what?
Basically, he dives into all the legal.
Yeah, he gets into more of the legal side. So the one is like how to fill it out. The other one's more of the legal side of some of that stuff. So the next Tuesday will be the Repsy workshop. Then Thursday is the buyer packet. And then the next Tuesday will be the Jeopardy game that we play that's kind of finishes it up. So. Well, we can check. If you want.
I've been doing a lot. Either I keep going to the exact same ones, like missing like
that could be.
2.
So you probably.
That's what I'm doing too.
Yeah,
We were on the same team with Jeopardy last time.
We were, yeah.
So, well, except for there are two different Jeopardy games too.
Oh. we'll see.
I saw two different ones.
Okay, so, well, what we need to check with yours, I have a spreadsheet that will tell
Okay.
me if you, which
I'll
ones you're
just keep
missing.
coming the next 2 weeks.
Okay, so anyway, I just want to make sure everyone's clear, crystal clear. So still for Tracy and Abe, if your camera's not on, I'm gonna say it again. And the good news is this is all being recorded so that later on when they go, how come you didn't give me credit? I can say, well, I said, your camera's got. I know, 3 times I said your name. So, and we got another one that's joined too. So, Kristen, so you gotta have your camera on if you want to get the CE credit. If you don't care about the CE credit, don't turn your camera on. So for the Zoomers, all right. All right, everybody else that's here, so there should be the sign-in sheet. Is it going around somewhere? Yeah. Okay, good. So for you guys, same thing. So I need your license number at least one of the times. So same for you guys on Zoom. I don't need you to put in the license number for all 6 when you sign in for all 6 of the classes, but I do at least need you to give your license number at least once, so I don't have to go look it up. Sound good? All right, if I got all the housekeeping stuff in order.
What is 30% of 2 hours? I mean, just out of curiosity.
Hypothetical.
Hypothetically.
Why do you mean 30%?
Didn't he say?
30% of a 20.
You have to be here for 90%. Is that what you're
yeah.
asking?
He said 90% of what?
Yeah.
Oh.
90% of the time of the class time you have to be in.
Oh, okay.
How
I'm
long
not
have
gonna
I
be
been
here
here?
30%.
I know James like,
like,
he's already asked
here,
me,
baby.
he has already asked me, so if I have my video on while I'm showing a house, does that count? And
Worst case scenario. You never know.
You're like, I'm busy.
Yeah, you know.
that works. All right. So any other questions, anything? Austin, do you want to say anything for Inspiro?
Not really. I mean, rates right now are somewhat stabilizing. You know, they've been on an upward trend. The Fed is doing their thing this year, so they're going to continue to go up. But
Abe's got his camera on. Yeah, did you just have to get dressed, Abe? You just had to put some clothes on?
Can you hear me? No, my camera wasn't working on my Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
doesn't change a thing though, as far
Everybody
as your approach to buyers. I mean,
You want extra
the
CE.
strategy is still the same thing. There's always urgency. You know, as they go up, they will lose some buying power, but yeah, as of now, they're still in a decent range that, you know, you've still got plenty of things to work with.
I know it might be a little vague of a question, but it seems like you said it was like almost plateauing a little bit, like it's kind of staying steady
It's kind of calmed down for a second.
for a second. You don't know
Yeah,
how
so-
long that was.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, the Fed is not meeting in February, so they'll meet again in March. And so that'll be interesting to see where it goes from there. But I think right now we're in a bit of a lull as far as the upward trend goes. So we'll see how long that lasts, but.
But the rates on the board are not today's rates.
No, in fact, I'm the one who changed it to, it was like 3 1/4 and I changed it to 3 1/2 and that's
It's
changed quite a bit.
It's potentially about an eighth up from that, but
Here, I'll tell you.
yeah, it's a volatile bond market right now, so. You know,
Actually, I'm showing 30-year conventional is a 4%.
possibly I haven't checked it this morning.
FHA 4, and all of them 4%. So they're all 4%.
Yeah, you have an app or what's that?
It's a link that's in Inspiro that has their
Is that like the same that shows on their TV?
Possibly.
probably,
Is that-
because I'm getting it from them, so.
Yeah, I just walked in, it's like 3.75.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Somewhere around there.
So someone's lying.
I know.
There's moving so much that it's up and down throughout the day and that they haven't had time to update either the TV or.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's pretty volatile, but as a whole, they're gonna continue to go up. I mean, I don't think they'll go up too much beyond, 4%, 4.25% potentially, but, that kind of remains to be seen. But, your strategy is always the same to not focus too much on a rising rate market and just import urgency and, don't wait anymore for buyers that are on the fence.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, thanks. All right, we ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So part of the 12-hour new agent course is, and actually, let me even give you the background of the whole thing. If you go back in time, probably 10 years, maybe even 12 now, but this class was not required, meaning when you got your license, the division sent you an email with your license that said, during the first 2 years, you got to take the 12-hour new agent course. Okay. So, but if you go back from before that, I was already training new agents at that point. And I would take them through what I called actually these 6 classes we're going to do right now. Prior to that, I always called them the technical skills. So these were the tech skills classes. And what happened actually is I had taught them, an agent then had to go take that 12-hour new agent course. And so, and back then too, you had to pay the board like $120 to get the 12-hour new agent course. So they would go over to the board and they would pay them the $120 to take the 12-hour class, and which was 2 days of 6 hours each. And so an agent had missed a different class that I was doing and had called me and said, hey, I have to go do the 12-hour new agent course, so I'm not going to be in your class tomorrow. And I said, no worries. And so the next time that he came back to class though, I asked him, I said, so how was the 12-hour new agent course? And he said, it was boring because everything that they talked about, you had already taught us in the tech skills classes, which what that did for me then is I thought, well, then if it's the same information, then I should go to the division and get approved for the 12-hour new agent course, because it's going to be part of the training program that we would make the agents do anyway. So I might as well get credit so that you wouldn't have to sit through this, then go over to the board and do it again. Although apparently Trevor just is going to keep coming every time anyway. But- So anyway, that was kind of the background. And so I then went to the division and said, okay, I want to get approved to teach the 12-hour new agent course. And the reason I'm giving you all of this background is, one, just so you kind of understand, but two is for this piece right here. Is when I taught the CMA class before, I didn't really ever say anything about appraisers and what an appraisal is and da. But as part of the 12-hour new agent at the division, in order for me to get the ability to teach it, there are certain things that we have to spend a certain amount of time on. And one of those for this particular class is talking about what's the difference between a CMA and an appraiser and an appraisal. So we're going to talk about that for right now. So to kind of keep in mind, the next 6 classes that we do, some of it is just, this is what you guys need to know. And I would have taught it to you even if we didn't have the 12-hour new agent stuff. But other pieces are going to be, hey, the division wants to make sure you guys understand and know this stuff. So I'm going to get that out of the way right off the bat. So let me ask you guys, and you guys tell me, and same with Zoom, you guys can answer as well, is what is the difference between an appraisal and a CMA? So we're going to have a discussion for a little bit about that. So what thoughts do you guys have? What's the difference, Trevor?
So a comparative market analysis is an estimate of an appraisal based off of what's been happening in our market from agents. And appraisal is actually based off of like value of home and obviously what's sold in the area. It's more exact science, I guess, because they do specific numbers, right?
Okay, so Trevor's saying.
An estimate versus an exact appraisal.
Okay, so Trevor's saying this is what I have learned, by the way, is it's good that the division said have this conversation, because I think it's going to be helpful. So Trevor's saying an appraisal is an exact and a CMA is an estimate. What?
Nothing. Go ahead. I was like,
Did I not say it right?
Yeah, you did. I did say it was exact, but it's.
But now you're questioning yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
now that I heard you say it too, it sounds good.
Okay, Jeremy,
The
please.
mortgage goes off the appraisal, not the CMA.
Okay, good. So for sure, that's going to be one. So one of the differences is whoever's giving the loan is going to trust that over the CMA, okay?
For an appraiser or an appraisal, it has to be done by a licensed appraiser, but like a CMA can be done by an agent.
Okay, good, good.
An appraisal is much more like kind of fine tune and tweak. Like they bracket, everything and really make sure that they're comparing apples to apples and not just like what house is sold there and what house is sold there. It's much more of an in-depth analysis.
Okay, cool. Like it. What about on Zoom? Anybody got anything? Apparently not.
No CE credit.
Yeah, Jeremy said you guys don't get credit. You got to participate. Nothing? Okay. All right. So now here's the next question then. Okay, go ahead. Douglas.
An appraisal is basically looking at the last 6 months, between 90 and 120 days of what's sold. And so appraisers are going on what's happened in the past, and agents are going on what's going on currently and projecting into the future.
Good, I like that. So, do you? Yeah. He must have had a good teacher. So,
It's almost like we talked about this at dinner last night.
yeah. So here's the thing, and that I like to look at it that way, is an appraiser is typically taking and looking at what happened in the past. Versus for you and I, and I'm gonna say this two different ways, but for you and I, we typically want to look at it as, okay, we're not trying to sell this house 3 months ago or 6 months ago. We're trying to sell it tomorrow. And so really, what is it going to do then? Now, the analogy I like to use is if I wanted to buy a stock today, so let's just say, I mean, I don't know, Apple, okay? I want to buy stock in Apple. Would it do me any good really to look back and go, okay, what could have I bought Apple stock for 3 months ago?
You would trust.
I mean, it could help you, yeah.
Yeah, so to some extent, so good, and I like that, because to some extent, yes, we do want to look back. I would want to look back at the history of Apple stock to see, well, what's going on. Is it at a low? Is it as a high? Where is it trending? All of those things. So I would agree with that. But does it matter beyond the trend? Does it matter like, oh, I could have bought it 6 months ago for 50,000 or whatever, you know, a bunch less.
No.
So kind of think of it that way is okay. And actually, let me ask the next question that I didn't get to. Which one then is more, I don't know if I want to use the word accurate since you did, but which one's the more trusted or reliable, or which one do people seem to trust more? Yeah, and so part of it is you want to keep that in mind, is part of the thing to know is that in the public's eyes, the appraiser is like, for whatever reason, we're down here next to used car salesmen and attorneys, and appraisers are up here next to like clergy and, you know, like people put an appraiser on, well, this is what they said. Now, part of why that is, I would say, goes to what you brought up, James, which is that part of it is because when they do it, they tend to bracket it and they break all this stuff down and do all these things. Therefore, people kind of look at it as, oh, well, but an appraiser said it was worth X amount of dollars. So now, let me go back to kind of where I'm going to use your words that you didn't like how I said it, Trevor, but is typically, and a lot of times even agents will put more. I don't want it to sound like, by the way, that I'm like totally trashing on appraisers, even though I kind of am.
Yeah, you deserve it.
But part of it is that here's why. Here's where I really learned it. So I have a guy that lives up the street from me who is an appraiser, and he's also a real estate agent now, but he's been an appraiser for a long time. Well, a guy that lives further up the street from him called me one day and said, hey, my mom's died and we need to sell her house. It's in Taylorsville, just off of Atherton Drive. So kind of 13th West and what, 40, I don't know, it was what South Atherton Drive is, 39th, 41, somewhere around there. Anyway, kind of by the Four Lakes Golf Course, if you're familiar with that, okay? So he calls me and says, she's died, we need to sell her house. Can you come out and tell me what you think it would sell for? So I drive out there, I get to the house, and when I got there, this home was built early 2000s. I think it might have even been 2000. So it was built then, and she had it built. She was already elderly. And so as a result of that, when she had the home built, she was like, I don't want stairs, so don't do a basement. So she did a slab on grade. So it's new construction in 2000, no basement, but every other house in the neighborhood has basements. And most houses built since 2000 typically are going to have a basement, but no basement. So he says, will you do tell me what you think it would sell for? I say, great. I come back to the office. I start to do my CMA for him. And as I'm doing it, in order to find properties that had no basement was like almost impossible. So I just kind of had to do as best as I could. I had to just extrapolate. So I kind of had to just play around with it till I could figure it out, which, by the way, let me pause for a second and say this. The biggest struggle I had as a new agent in terms of doing CMAs is I wanted it to be a science. I am more of a, I like numbers kind of a thing. And so for me, I wanted it to be a science where you just plug it in and it spits out an answer, like what the appraiser basically does. But I wanted it to be, you just plug it in, it spits it out. Here's what the house is going to sell for. It does not work that way. It is an art. It is not a science. So part of why I say that and bring that up of it's an art, not a science. Well, I go look at the house, I come back to the office, I'm trying to put together to figure out what this property is going to be worth. Well, there aren't any other comparables that are the same to where I, within a reasonable distance, to where I could just go, okay, here you go, and this is what it's going to sell for. So you kind of have to extrapolate, meaning it's an art. I had to kind of just play with it to figure out like, okay, well, if I had X amount of dollars, and a lot of times this is what I will do, by the way, when I can't figure out how much a house is worth, what I will do is start with, if I were a buyer today and I had kind of the range of what the neighborhood, that much money to spend, what could I get for my money? See, and an appraiser doesn't approach it that way. But for us, a lot of times, because really at the end of the day, what the buyer is going to pay for the house is going to be dependent on that. Is I've got X amount of dollars and they're going to go buy the home that for them is the best value. Not, to some extent, it doesn't really matter what other people have paid. Okay. So I go out there, I after I've looked it up and I go meet with him and I tell him, here's what I've come up with. And I told him I thought that house would probably sell, and I don't remember exactly what I told him, but somewhere around 185. I said it probably ought to sell for about 185,000. And he said, whoa, well, Kelton told me that it was gonna, the appraiser, he said he told me it was worth 217,000. And I was like, wow, can I see his appraisal? Because I would like to see how he came up with that number. So he sends me the appraisal and I look at it. And now remember, this property is out here in Atherton, just off of Atherton in Taylorsville. One of the comparables he used was over here in Sandy. So we went from a property that was on about 13th West to and 40th something-ish south to a property over here in Sandy, 13th East. So here's the question for you.
Appraisers are the worst. Kelton's the worst.
He is the worst.
He's actually not. I call him every appraisal question.
I know
He's very nice
he
guy.
really isn't bad. And in fact, I
And if
almost,
you have him as an appraiser, he totally is like a good one to have because he gets it.
yeah, no, he is coming around. He also, though, on the bad side is he'll
Still
go
an appraiser.
list a property for 1% and offer you 1% too for whatever. Anyway, Douglas is being all nice and I keep trashing him.
I sent him the link, so he's watching.
Well, he better turn his camera on if
Said,
he's
"Hey,
watching.
my dad's talking about you.
He better turn the camera on if he wants CE credit. All right, so yeah, which I have told him, and in fact, I'll see him tonight. I'll probably tell him, hey, I talked about you today again of how you said the appraisal. Of course, he turns it on that I was a horrible agent and I should have been able to sell it for 217. But anyway, so okay, so guess what the seller wants to sell the property? When it's time to list it, does he want to list it at 185 or does he want to list it at 217?
217.
Yeah, could be. And here, the reason is, well, the appraiser said this is what it's worth. So I said, okay, I explained our pricing strategy. I said, great, let's try it. Let's see what happens. So we list it at 217. And just as the other thing I forgot to tell you guys too, the other thing that was unique on this property. So it was built in 2000, but right outside the back door is a mobile home park. So all of the street that it was on backed up to a mobile home park, which is that going to add value to the property?
No.
I don't know, man. You find cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, any showings that we did have at that price, the feedback was, we don't want to back up to a mobile home park. So most of the buyers weren't interested. So anyway, after a few weeks, we reduced the price. We ended up selling it, and I don't remember what we sold it for, somewhere around 190, but closer to where I had said that I thought the value was at. So for me, I guess here's my point of that. We have to start with this whole process we're going to do. We're going to start with doing it the way an appraiser would do it, because we are going to have to deal with appraisers. And so for me, like I say, when I saw that, I called him up and said, you can't use a comparable in Sandy. And he's like, well, there's no other comparables. I didn't have a choice. And so my response was, well, then you didn't make enough of an adjustment to reduce it because of location where it was at. But okay, so let's do this. Let's start with, so how does an appraiser go about doing an appraisal? What are the things that they're looking for? Because we're going to do the similar type of a thing as we do a CMA. I am going to typically start with the same process that an appraiser is going to use, because I want to know a ballpark of what the appraiser is probably going to say. Okay, so if I have this house right here, how far away, and I know there's not like, there's going to be exceptions to every single thing. Okay, but so just as a general rule, how far away from the house will an appraiser go?
Half mile?
No, like not past busy highways or
1 to 2 miles.
Okay,
Not more than 5.
Who knows? They're appraisers. Whatever
whatever they feel like. Okay, so
Taylorsville to Sandy.
So yeah, typically it's going to be a mile. They want to be within a 1 mile area of the property. Okay. Now, with that being said, though, ideally they want to get one of the comparables should be in the neighborhood. So they're going to try to find one in the actual neighborhood that the property's in. But the other two could be within a mile. Now, again, like I say, this is going to all kind of vary, because if we were talking about a property that is more out in, I don't know, Grantsville or something, they might go a little bit further out just because you kind of have to. Does that make sense? Versus if you're in the avenues, you're going to you might not even go that far out. You follow me? Okay. All right. What else are they going to look at? What are the other things that they're going to do to be looking at?
Home style.
Okay, good. We want us to have the same style of house.
Square footage.
Good.
Probably gonna look at the year of the house.
Each 2 acres.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Trevor beat you, sorry. Yep, you're built. Thank you, though.
Thanks for participating.
I don't, we got to remember, there's probably, depending on the person's Wi-Fi, there might be a little bit of a lag, so.
half CD credit.
No, he at least participated.
Right.
We still don't have Tracy turning her camera on, so. I don't know.
One more.
Sorry, I don't need the CE credits,
Okay, you're good. I'm just giving you a hard time too, Tracy.
but I do like this subject and I need to learn more. I have a question or a favor though. When people say stuff in the audience, can you repeat? So Trevor
Yes.
said, because
Yes.
we can't hear them very good and I'm old. Thanks.
I will do that. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. I try to remember to do that, but I don't always remember. So thank you.
Right.
What?
Talking to Jeanette.
Yeah, my son said something rude and I don't know if I should repeat it. So I'm just kidding. I don't know what he said. I'm just kidding. All right. What else?
I don't know if this is right, but updates, like updates.
Okay, good.
Condition.
That's all we'll call it.
Sorry, not trying to.
No, it's okay, you're right here.
How dare you know what you're talking
about.
Ellie, you threw it up there. All right.
Garage.
Okay, good.
Lot size.
Ooh,
Lot size.
Square footage is about.
Reasonably close bedroom bathroom count.
Yeah, so here, so
reasonably close.
the next thing, so what Douglas is saying is
4 bed, 1 bath. just
beds and
about.
baths, yes.
Yeah.
Although I will tell you, and again, now here's the other thing. Let me remind you of this.
It's a range.
This is more of an art than a science. Remember that, okay? Meaning, if we had a different manager in the company come in and teach you how to do a CMA, they may not do it exactly the way that I'm going to show you. So don't get caught up in, well, that's not how so-and-so said to do it. But so a reason I say that is, for me, I will consider beds and baths, but typically that's going to be if I have a lot of comparables. That these are more the main things I'm going off of to begin with, is I'm going to look at the style, the square footage, year built, the condition of the garage, the lot size. If I have a ton of comparables, then after that, I will maybe say, okay, now let's narrow it down by beds and baths and some of those things. Does that make sense? Okay. So typically what an appraiser is going to do is that in the event that they have to use something that's outside of kind of the norm, meaning if you had to go outside of this area. So the example I gave of him going from Sandy to there, he had to write down why he did that. You have to justify versus you don't have to justify if you stay within kind of the parameters. So the other one that we didn't put up here, but we did talk about already, but was 6 months. So if they go beyond 6 months, they're gonna have to justify why they did. Now, the truth is, they really, in today's market, they want to see more like 90 days. And why?
Because it's a fact.
It's so fast.
Yeah, it's changing so quickly that if you go back 6 months, like it's totally different, right? Okay, good. So that's where we're gonna start with is that, okay? And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna run you guys through basically how I would do it. And as Douglas brought up, I always use the house basically that he was born in.
I learned to ride a bike.
Yeah, you learned to ride a bike. And he's the reason that I don't have a big dog either, because he got licked by it and cried. So.
That is not wrong, I remember.
Did you want a big dog though? Is that?
I had.
Oh.
Yeah, I had
We had 2
Labradors.
big dogs.
Yeah, I had
Oh.
Labradors, but,
Ooh.
I mean, let's be
You got rid of
honest,
them?
mom just conveniently used me as a reason to get rid of it.
Yeah, all right. So for you guys on Zoom, total side conversation, has nothing to do with the class. But yeah. All right, so what we're gonna do, so let me get the screen turned on here. Get this plugged in. So I'm gonna jump in, we're gonna use this house that was the first home that I owned. I'm gonna run you through, assuming that today I got a call from whoever owns it now and said, we want to sell our house, will you come and take a look at it? So we're gonna take it through the process as if, which just as a reminder real quick, I think I said this already for everybody on Zoom, but if you have not put in your name and license number, make sure you do it. I have had, I've had a few calls recently from people.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, so you wave higher than now, we can see them.
Oh, yeah. I'm probably gonna make it to where you can't hear in a second. Okay, so here's the key thing though, for you guys too, even actually in here. I have had what?
Can you hit the front lights?
No, but I can do all the lights. So I've had 2 times in the last week that I've gotten a call from somebody that has said, hey, I took your whatever class, for CE, and both of these were actually about the code of ethics. And because the board requires that, not the division. And they said, the board's saying I haven't done the code of ethics, but I know I did it with you. Can you send me the certificate? And I said, well, first I have to verify that you actually were in the class. And so I all of this will be scanned in. So the Zoom printout and this, scan it and put it in there. And then I go to look it up. So this morning had one that said, no, I know I was in your class. And I went back, looked through the roster. They were not signed in. There was nothing typed on the Zoom. So that's all I have to go off. So for you guys, when you come in, make sure you signed in. So like even Trevor actually today said, I know I've taken all these classes. Well, if you didn't sign in, so anyway. Yeah. So just make sure you do. So on Zoom, same thing. All right. So we're going to go through this. So here's how I do it. Now, remember, this is an art, not a science. I'm going to just walk you through how I go about doing a CMA. And if you guys have questions, comments, if you don't like it, then whatever. All right. So here we go. So first thing that I do is when I get a listing appointment, the first thing I'm going to always do, and again, this is just something I like to do. You don't have to do this, but is I go to the MLS and then I want to look up that property to see what has happened in the past. So I will typically go to the full search, and if you guys have questions a little bit on the MLS, I'm okay with that. What I don't want to do is I've had a few times where it tries to get turned into a teach us how to use the MLS class, and that's not, I don't want to do that. So, but if you do have some questions along the way of why stuff or whatever, I'll do it. So the house number, I usually start by throwing in the house number for the property that I'm looking for, okay? So you'll notice now that took it down to 61 matches, and I took out the status, so it's including all statuses. I put in the address there. From here, depending on if I want to sort through and look at 61, which for what I'm doing right now, I wouldn't mind. But if I wanted to narrow it down a little bit, then I probably would come here and go, okay, in Salt Lake County. Well, that brought it down to 32. So you can see I could go through and do like a zip code or whatever if I wanted to continue to narrow it down. But for what I'm wanting to look for, 60 even wouldn't have been bad, because I just then hit view results. And then I'm just gonna scan here the streets till I find the one, which this is it right here. So Walnut View Circle. So I'm just gonna click on it. Now, so what I'm doing is twofold for this. One is I just like to go in and look at it to figure out like, okay, how big is the house? You know, where's it at? How many beds and baths does it have? All that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I will do is I like to click on the history. And again, this is just a personal preference, but I like going in and seeing what's the history of the property. What has gone on with the property? And on the MLS, at least ours, so for you guys in St. George, your MLS is different than ours. So, which I know Tracy knows that, but some of the others may or may not be aware. So the way you're going to do it might not be, meaning wherever the history is not going to be the same as what I'm showing you here, but the process is still the same. Okay. So for me, I like to look at this and just see what has gone on with this property. So you can see here, we had the home built and then I sold it in 2000. Okay. So in 2000 is when we put it on the market, in August of 2000. And so this is the first thing that happened on this property. And then going up will get us to the most recent thing, which is the last time it sold, which was July of 2012. So 10 years ago, right? Okay, so I just like to look at that to kind of get a feel for what happened with the property. Okay.
Hey, Russ.
Yeah.
If it was like for sale by owner at a point, will it show up on there?
No.
No. So like if right now like that sold recently, just by a cash deal for sale by owner, we wouldn't know about that.
Yeah, so let me repeat because I forgot to. So Jeremy was asking, if you guys didn't hear, is if it would have been a for sale by owner, would it show up on the MLS? The answer is no. And unless if an agent had been involved, so let's say there was a for sale by owner and you took a buyer to it, you could, with permission from the seller, still put it on the MLS when it closes. And that you want to do that for two reasons. One is it gives us another comp to use later on down the road. But two, more so important, is if you care about ever becoming a broker, which you may or may not, but why not still just get the points? In order for you to get the point, well, you don't have to have it, but it's easier to show your points if it's on the MLS. So kind of the main thing I would say is get it on there just so that other agents, we have it as a comparable to use. But yeah, if this home, which is possible that it has, I don't know, had been put on the market since 2012 as a for sale by owner, I wouldn't know on there.
Russ,
They put it on themselves.
Yeah,
using
they
an
pay a
agent.
commission.
Can't they like a for sale by owner say, hey, I want to list my house on the MLS? Can't they reach out? Not.
Well, no, but that's what it would have to be though.
So you can't, so I've heard though that for sale by owners can literally like list their property on the MLS by paying like a fee to do that. Is that incorrect?
Well, no, what, so again, just let me repeat for these guys on Zoom. He's asking, can they get it on the MLS just by paying a fee? Yeah, that's what a discount broker is. So yes, I mean, what you're saying is right. Even if it's not homey, there could be other companies.
But
like
it still will be technically listed by a brokerage on that.
Yes, if
Oh,
it's
okay,
on
that's
the,
what-
that's the only way it can be on the MLS. Yep, good. Good. Tracy, I think you had a question or somebody.
yeah, I was told that you can't do that and I don't know when it was. So how far back can we go to put it back on, to put it on like that? I mean, I
Hey, for
guess it
sale by
wouldn't-
owner?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to ask somebody 5 years ago, but maybe a year or two.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how far back. That would be a question I would say call over to the Washington.
And everything's
ask
where they're
them.
supposed to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hang on, somebody's-
so I was gonna take a marketing class and they're in the summer too, so.
All right, I muted you, Jason. Sorry. He probably can't hear me anyway. He's talking to somebody.
Was he not just talking to?
Was he? Yeah.
I thought he was talking to us
Yeah.
or you.
He was participating.
Why?
I thought he was participating.
If you were talking to me, Jason, then unmute and do it again. Sorry. but it sounded like he was talking to somebody else.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. All right. So Tracy, I would say call up to the MLS and find out from them, because I don't know how far back you can go. And I guess it's also possible that since St. George, you guys are on a different MLS, maybe they won't let you. But I know the Salt Lake, they will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so for me, I'm gonna get this. The other thing I want to do is I want to print this out. So I printed this morning this out just so that I would have it here. And you'll see why in just a second here. But I usually will print it out, and then a lot of times I'll even just take this with me when I go out to look at the house to use it to just any changes that have taken place. So for example, let's say that they added an extra bedroom or a bathroom or something, I just could use this to change it. So I either will do that, or I will print off the actual MLS input sheet and just fill it out while I'm there. But I always still want to have this as just a, what was the property like? The other thing that I will typically do as well is click on the pictures and go through and look at, which I didn't do this color, by the way. I also didn't do the good and bad. They put tile in there. I didn't have tile. I had carpet, but they changed it to tile, but then I don't know about the color. But anyway. This was carpet too, and you put linoleum in there.
Yeah.
So I just like to, oh, see, Douglas was no, I'm just kidding. That carpet I did put in, but so I just usually will go through to get kind of a feel for what did it look like before. And this is what it looked like in 2012, okay? So that's what it did. So, but clearly 10 years later, I'm not going out there expecting it to still look like that, although it might. Who knows? All right, so I'm going to print that off. Now we're ready to jump in and start doing our comparables, okay? So I'm going to go back here and clear out the search criteria to start over. So I'm going to start this just like an appraiser would do it, okay? So for me, typically what I'm going to do then on this is I'm going to say, okay, I want to see the sold properties. And I'm going to go to the map. And then I usually, for me, again, I'll go to this radius tool. And I want to go, I'm just going to say a mile from, and then you can actually put in the address of the property, or you can put in the MLS number. And I'm going to set the criteria. So now it's done a range around the property here. So I'm going to hide that.
It returned more than 300.
Yeah, so we're at 300 properties within 1 mile that have sold, but that's forever, right? So now I'm going to come down here and say the style of property. So I'm going to stop for a second and explain something that I see, not as much anymore, but just every now and then. If for some reason I had a hard time finding comparable tri-level or multi-levels, something that agents will occasionally do, and I don't think it's right, but they do it, so you need to know, is a lot of times agents will think a 2-story is more desirable than a multi-level, and maybe it is, but they would have listed this property as a 2-story instead of a multi-level because they would have thought it would get more attraction or whatever. So for me, if we had a hard time finding comparables, I don't know that we will, but if we did, I might also include 2 stories, and then looking at the pictures, weed out the ones that are true 2 stories from the ones that are tri-level, multi-levels. Okay, so just that's again back to kind of the art versus the science of just knowing that sometimes agents will do that.
Just try level like two stories with a basement. Or is like,
So probably the best way I could show you is, let me go back to the property here. So a tri-level on this one, right here, well, let me go to the other picture.
Split level.
But yeah, it's more like a split.
Except
So-
not at the entry.
So right here, there was like 4 steps to go down to here, and then you would turn here and go down 10 stairs to get to the basement.
okay.
And let me see if they've got a picture of the other room. pass it. So this, right behind where this is, there's about 10 steps that go upstairs into where the bedrooms are. So this one technically has 4 levels. Does that make sense?
Is like 2 steps,
There's like
a
3
level, or is it 3 steps is a new level, or?
I think
It's
it's
just
just
Yeah,
one
the
step
answer is
for
yes.
three
Don't
flights of stairs.
overthink it.
Okay.
there's 3 flights of
doesn't-
stairs.
That's probably the best way of saying it. 3, and sometimes might even be 4 flights of stairs.
Right.
But is 1 step a flight of stairs?
If you gotta go down.
Don't
that route.
overthink it.
If it's a different level, then yeah.
All right. I'm gonna bring my level everywhere.
There you go.
Okay,
It's close enough to be a step.
Yeah, no, don't overthink it. Okay, so now we're down to 90 here. So now what else do we need to put in here still?
Number of days back.
Okay, good. So I can either do it right here under this sold date, I could change it there because it's going back a year right now. Or I could do it here, so I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna start with 120, let's just see what that does. Oh.
Oh, it didn't do the address anymore. You have to do the location again.
Oh, did they take it out? No.
Oh. There you go. I don't know what happens.
So that still took us from 90 to a, something's not right. How do we go from 90 to 126 by? All right, that's fine. We'll just
Maybe
keep going. We'll see what happens. Okay, what else do I put in? Your vote? Okay, so this one was, year built was 1993. So what should I put in as a range?
1990 to 2000.
Okay,
That's what I was thinking.
second.
Okay.
So for me though, let me stop. So for me, I'm gonna put in, and in a few years, this probably won't matter, but, and maybe it doesn't even so much now. But for me, I kind of try to look for cutoffs. Like I probably actually potentially, for years and years, I would have never gone below a 1990 as year built. Versus today, I might say, we could even go back to 1985 or something. But on the year, the closer to, I'm gonna cut it off at 1999, just because, you guys tell me, do you ever have a buyer that says, I want something built 2000 or newer? You ever hear that or?
Sometimes it's happened,
Okay.
but not often.
So like, that's what I'm saying, is we may be getting far enough away from it now that maybe it doesn't matter anymore.
5 years ago, they wanted 2000.
Right, that's what I'm
Now
saying.
it's 2005, 2010.
But that's my point, is so to some extent, it maybe isn't as important now. But maybe if the property I was doing was built in 2005, then maybe I would cut it off at 2010 or whatever. That's kind of how I usually look at it. So, but I'm good with, let's see what happens if we do it this way, from 1990 to 99. So that brings us down to 21. The other thing I would say is let's throw in 2-car garage, although I don't know that it'll do much that way, but we'll see. Okay, square footage. So this one was 1808 is the square footage. So what should I put as a range?
15.
I was just gonna say 16 to 2000, yeah.
Okay,
15 to
so 16,
2000,
but I'm gonna do
yeah.
to 1999 again, because again, I feel like if a buyer, that one I think still probably holds true if somebody's saying we want at least 2,000 square feet.
Yep.
So this one wouldn't apply. So for me, that's where I would cut that off. So here's the other thing. Think of it this way. In terms of the year built, the older the home, the bigger the range I'm gonna use. The newer the home, the tighter the range. Make sense? Yep. Probably same kind of a thing on square footage too. The bigger the house, the bigger the range I'm gonna use. All right, so we're down to 11. The other thing we could throw in, I guess, is lot size here. But I don't know if it's gonna make that much of a difference. So our lot size is 0.19. So I'll just say 0.15 to 0.25. Actually 24. So that dropped it down to 6. Okay, so that's good enough for me. So let's see what we can come up with here. Now, you may want to even start with more than 6, but for the sake of what we're doing today, 6 will probably be good. So what I'm gonna do now then is I wanna take those 6 and look at them to see, are they comparable as far as condition and things? Now, we're not gonna take the time to go through every single one of them. But you guys just kind of help me through it. So this is actually a classic example of what I was telling you. I can already tell by looking at that picture, that is not a tri-level.
It's a split end.
Yeah.
I know a lot, actually.
But see, but it's the same concept, is an
Right.
agent will call that a multi-level because that sounds better than a split entry.
I'll even see on the multi-unit under it, you'll see some single families with mother-in-laws in the multi-unit area.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a duplex, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
So I'm gonna remove that one because I'm like, yeah, that's not. Okay, so there, that one is gonna be one. Okay, so now, part of what we're gonna do with this is, we're not gonna get so detailed on this one, but if I were doing this for real, the rest of these 5 properties, or I'm assuming the rest of these 5, I would be going through, looking at all the photos to see what condition they're in. So let's assume, actually on this one that I printed out here that we're doing the CMA on, let's assume that that property was rehabbed. So that it doesn't look like what the pictures we did. Let's assume they told us we put in a new kitchen, we've got updated carpet, paint. I mean, like, it's all like, let's say it's an 8 or a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe even, let's say a 9. So what I would do then is, the next thing is I would want to go through and look at each of these to see how does this property compare? And ultimately I'm looking at a number of things. So the first thing I'm going to look at is on this one, I probably should have kept the other one still pulled up, but this one's listed more like it's a split entry, but if you look at the picture, you can see it is a tri-level. But if you look at it, this one has 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. Let me actually pull this other one back up again real quick. Every time I do this, it just makes me wish I would have never sold this house. Because I sold it for
$130. Oh, man.
146.
Now 146.
Hey, you sold it above list price.
I know.
Way to go.
I think I actually paid closing costs for the buyer, but it didn't get put into the MLS. but- Okay, yeah, so now that's why every time I do this, I'm like, crap, I should have kept that out. Okay. So as you go through and look at this though, so I'm first looking at square footage is about the same. 2 bedrooms and 1 bath versus 3 bedrooms and 1 bath. There wasn't, so again, this is one of those art versus science things too. There was a time years ago when I wouldn't have used this as a comparable because it only had 2 bedrooms. Versus as I've done this over the years, because every time I teach this class, I use the same property. And as I've done it over the years, what I've come to notice is there really is no difference in the price between a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom versus years ago, there was. It made a difference. So I don't know why, but as the property's gotten older, it hasn't seemed to matter as much for whatever reason. Okay. All right. So I would look at that. I probably would be willing to keep that. Let's take a look at some photos real quick. So this one we would say is not updated. Well, I mean, I guess sort of.
Like a 6, 4,
Yeah, I was just gonna say on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you guys think?
5.
Yeah, it's not horrible. Well, actually, some
Pictures always make them look good, to be honest.
So it is worse.
It is worse.
All right, so we'll keep that one for now. Let's go to the next one here. This next one is a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Let's see what the photos look like here. It's always a bad sign when they're showing all the exterior first, I feel like. But it's actually, yeah, it's pretty good.
I think it's just the order of operations for them. Yeah, start with that. Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think? Condition,
Like a 7 or 8.
Yeah, I'd say 7.
Okay.
It's pretty efficient.
good. Okay, we'll keep that one. So this one's a little bit different of a layout type of a
Right.
thing, but
Same.
what do you think on this one? They needed a professional photographer is the first thing. No. Every
It's
photo's
an
got
interesting lot.
Every photo's got the white out on. Okay, yeah, it is an interesting lot, huh? 3 bedrooms, 1 bath though. Okay,
Walked around with his iPhone, huh?
the what?
Walked around with his iPhone.
Yeah,
These ones look there. Oh, wow.
okay,
We should do like a photography class.
no, we just pay,
hire 'em.
we just hire them, yeah. Okay, another 2 bedroom, 1 bath. There are
That's
no
actually-
cabinets.
That's weird.
It literally just has shelves and like, what the heck?
I've never seen those.
What
Kids
the-
a lot. How would you like that, Jeanette? It's your kitchen.
I would not like
I
that.
would
But that's
not
the cool thing to do now.
It is?
Cabinets, yeah.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
There is?
Yeah.
Just shelves.
Big
That's why they did it.
We have like
You obviously haven't watched
Don't you people know
HGTV.
this?
I do not, you're right.
This is not a good idea in an administration.
What?
Chip and Joanna are big into this.
Really?
No.
No.
Alright.
It's like, whatever chicken, like now
I
you
think
have,
it's ugly.
Hey, at least the ceiling's vaulted.
It's so impractical.
Facts.
you gotta buy all your, you gotta buy all your
There's
food and
something
stuff,
good
but like the display looks good too. You can't have like ugly looking food.
Yeah, you get.
Because you
That's
only
a good
get
point.
to
That's a
have,
good
like,
point.
30 dishes.
Aesthetics, man.
Dishwasher didn't get.
All right.
Good
Good enough.
Looking at you judging for that now.
All right, so really, any of these would be fine, it seems like, right, to use? Okay, so now let's do this. So here's what we want to do next is this next piece of it, I'm going to tell you how I do it. And I'll show you how others do it. I like, obviously, the way I do it. The other way, nothing wrong with it, it's just personal preference, okay? But for me, what I would do next, and I'm okay with taking 5 comparables out to a seller, although I may have gotten rid of, so let's actually see if there's any. I mean, this one here listed at $399, sold for $411. This one was $425, sold for $435. $445, sold for $445. $450, sold for $460. $450, sold for $460. So, I mean, I guess the question is, do we want to keep that first one?
How long ago was it?
So that, yeah, good. That would be the next thing I would look at is let's look and see.
Yeah, the other
This one
one's-
closed in
Chuck it.
October.
That's
Okay.
the oldest one for sure.
Is it? Did you pay
Yeah.
attention
Yeah,
already?
yeah, I did.
Okay, so if that was the oldest one, let's get rid of it.
The other ones were December, that's the second oldest one.
Okay.
And
So
then,
that would be the next thing. So again, back to this art versus science kind of a thing. I would want to be paying attention to this, especially with how the market's been. I want to use more recent properties. Cause yeah, there's January, December, January. So good. So we could potentially even say, let's get rid of this other one that was November as well. So that's fine, let's do it.
And then you still only have like solds, you could still do like your under contract.
Yeah, we're not there yet, so.
Oh, okay.
So for me, here's what I'm gonna do is,
Class
Yeah.
before.
yeah. So you have taken the class.
I've taken a listing or two.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I then just print out this client full report. And this is what I will print out and take to them. Versus initially I was looking at the agent full report. I made the mistake one time of going out, and luckily it was a friend or an acquaintance that I was listing their house. I had just printed out these agent full reports. I sat down with them and I started going through the comparables and I showed them 3 comparables. And I hadn't paid attention to who the listing agents were, but apparently they did. Because at the end they said, well, actually, we think we're just gonna list our house with, and they said some random name. And I was like, what? And he said, well, what you just showed me, that agent sold 2 out of the 3 houses. So maybe we should just call them. And I've never since then ever taken, instead now I print out the client full report and take that instead, because then it shows presented by. That's nice.
I'll be honest, like, do you not use like Toolkit or like the new Moxie that's gonna come out for the CMA? Cause,
I personally don't.
okay, I would say, cause like you said, you save like you can save as an agent full report, you just save like a document and it uploads into it.
Yeah, so, and you can do that. So, well, that's a totally different class that I'm actually going to teach you guys in on Moxie. But, for me personally, I print out this. That's what I take. That's
Are all the Moxies ready now? Like, is
No.
everything done? Oh, okay.
not yet. But the present is, the listing presentation. All right,
Did you get that listing or did the other guy get it?
no, I got it. It was, like I said, it was a friend. I mean, when I say friend, it was more than an acquaintance, but not like a friend I hung out with, but, it was somebody that I knew well enough that they were just messing with me. But okay, so what some people like to do though is to use the CMA report, which puts it into a process more like an appraisal, which if you like that, you can do it. I just personally don't like this, and the reason why, actually, let me show you. So on our MLS, you can do populate the subject property, put in the MLS. And then it will do a calculation to tell you, here's what the property should sell for.
That's what I was thinking, actually.
And I don't like that, and here's why. For me personally, what I noticed is if I had a seller, so let's just hypothetically say this seller said they wanted to sell for 480. When I get that and it says 450, I was always like, how can I adjust that to make it like closer to 480? That's the only reason I don't use this, is I don't like the idea of that. But if you do, then you can use it. So for me, here's how I do it. I'm gonna print these off, and then I would sit down with the seller and I would go through this property with them, and I would say, okay, this one has about the same square footage. It's got 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, just like theirs did. The basement on the subject property had 2 bedrooms and a full bath. So the difference being, let me just bounce back over there real quick. Was this one had another half bath on the main that this one doesn't have. So our subject property has an extra bedroom and an extra half bath that this one doesn't have, but you know, like I say, that's where on the adjustments part, you might make a bunch of adjustments, but to me, I kind of think it's probably not gonna make that much difference. Okay. So, all right, so just question, even though I already showed you what the computer said, what would you guys recommend the list price be for this seller based on what we've looked at?
Again, we're saying your home's a 10, right? 10 out of 10.
Well, we said it 9,
Oh.
but I mean, it's pretty close to
Probably 550.
550.
You probably still get it too.
So we got a 460, 445.
I'd start at least at 460 if it's nicer than these ones, to be honest.
Sounds like 460.
Okay.
460 or 480.
Yeah.
60.
Someone needs to pay my, I believe.
Yeah. So what, give me numbers. Same with on Zoom. You guys give me some numbers too. What do you think?
That was sold a month ago, 465.
Okay, so James is saying 465.
Top of the market, baby.
Okay,
Incomplete. We don't know what's listed yet.
I know, hang on.
475.
Don't take away my thunder.
My thought is like, do you want to be the highest priced home in the area? Or do you want to be a little more
Okay.
the median? That way you attract more buyers.
So what's your price then?
It is technically a trick question because we don't know yet.
It is a trick question, but
Based off this, I would think at least.
yeah,
at
so based
460.
off this,
At least.
That's what I
465.
said.
550.
475.
475?
Pick number 3, my lord.
What do you think? What's yours?
I don't know.
Give me a price, commit.
468.7.
You're not gonna fail the class, just give me a number.
I don't know. I feel like
All right,
460.
I actually love that.
475?
It works sometimes.
460?
Probably 458.
458, okay, what about Zoom? We've heard nothing from Zoom. Give me some prices. This
I'd
where
say
I can,
460.
okay?
462.
62.
99.
460.
Wait, so who said the something 99?
Said 459.9.
459.9, okay.
Not that.
The best by.
That's 469, 999.
All right. Okay, so now, here's what I would have said, is I would have said, what do we not know yet?
What's currently on the market?
Yeah, okay, good.
Or what's under contract.
So here's the key thing is, based on what we have seen here, I think what you guys have said is probably gonna be fine to have done. The problem is, at this point, all we know, remember, all we know is what happened. We don't know what's happening. right now.
Yeah, the problem is this house, that house sold on 114, which is how up at least 3%.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go back then. So I would have printed off those 3 properties and I would have gone through each 3 of them with the seller of saying, here's how this property is better or worse than yours. And here's how the next property is either better or worse than yours or the same. Here's how this one's better, worse, or the same. Basically kind of just looking at it in terms of yours has an extra bedroom, an extra half bath, and da.
What's your general rule for how many homes you would, like, is 3 like your sweet spot? Is that like not overwhelming?
I like 3, but I will do 4 or 5. I don't I think if you get more than 5, it's too many.
Yeah, I think I went with like 7 before. It was too much.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, my bad.
Trevor?
Like, so 3, like, would you include, let's say 3 sold, maybe 1 active, 1 under contract?
No, I'll do, no, yeah,
Or
great
3
question.
each?
Great question. I will do 3 sold. I like to have 3, well, depends. We'll see what we get in terms of under contract. But I like to have, if I could get about 3 of each,
That'd be ideal.
is ideal. Yep. You had something, Jeremy.
Yeah, so say if we're like, if I'm going over like that property, like this one's got, you know, a half bathroom and yours doesn't. When they start to be like, oh, well, then that is this much money, you know, that I could add or take away, like, how, like, would we know that, or is that something that
So
you just
it's
like?
a great question.
cost of
So
placement?
let me restate it for the people on Zoom. So if they start asking questions about, oh, ours has an extra bedroom or ours has this half bathroom, therefore, so depending on the personality style of the person, they may, if they're an analytic person, they might say, well, then I should be able to sell mine for more because I got the extra half bath. Here's the thing for me is honestly, I think just in general, the way it works, it's an extra bonus kind of a thing, but I don't, and yes, it technically probably should sell for more, but that's the hard part for me is, I'm more analytical. I want it to spit it out that way. Well, based on that, then yes, this is what it should do. So the answer to your question is yes, it should sell for more, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will.
Gotcha.
Meaning I have seen, we didn't have any today, but I have seen times where I've done this, where there are some that have a master bath versus this one that didn't have. This one had just of the 3 bedrooms up and the 1 bath. It's a shared bathroom. But it seemed to sell for the same price as one that had a master bath. When you would think having a master bathroom would make it more.
Yeah.
Even
But that's where you want to discuss your client, like, all right, do you want to put in an extra $3,000 on their price, or do you want to get it sold? Kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like,
Well, and again, the other thing that we have to come back to is this is just giving us a general idea, meaning an appraiser, they're done. They would have taken this and done what you're saying. They would have made all these adjustments and there's your price. But that's not the way a buyer buys. A buyer's not buying. I mean, they'll consider that. But yeah, but for the most part, it's what can you get for your money? It doesn't matter what somebody did.
Based off that, something that's really helped me use being a new agent is looking at every single like listing price per square foot. Cause like that's been pretty consistent. Like it doesn't matter if it has this bathroom, like you're saying, it's like master or not. Like if it's same style, same square footage, price is gonna be similar.
Yeah.
And so that's been able to help because it's like you've seen it kind of like level off for certain areas and kind of stay similar.
Yeah, so the good point, that something I forget to talk about, so thank you for bringing that up, is the price per square foot. I'm actually, and again, remember, this is personal preference. I am not a big, I personally don't worry about price per square foot. Like the only time I will worry about price per, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because there are a lot of people that do. I just, for me, I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't in a second, but there are some people that is kind of their main thing that they go off of, which is totally fine. But the struggle that I have with it is price per square foot doesn't take into account a 2-car garage versus a 3-car. It doesn't take into account the condition. Like there's a lot of things that don't play into that. But there are the times when I will use a price per square foot is when I get a unique house that I'm like, I have no clue
That's what I'm saying. If you
what to do.
I think it's a reference.
Yeah, it's a good
I think
reference.
the biggest thing for all of it is you can't treat every CMA the same. Sometimes you will use that, sometimes you won't. Some like
Yep.
be
Right.
flexible and don't. It's good that we're not an appraiser with a set algorithm where you type it in and it goes because every house is different.
Good. Yeah. So let me restate that for Zoom, because that's very good. Is basically what Douglas was saying is that in essence, he said it's an art, not a science, is really what it comes down to. Is sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. And for me, a lot of it is really probably this is the best way to sum it up that I would say for you guys. You really technically just need to do a lot of CMAs, because what you do is over time, you'll develop this kind of a sixth sense of to knowing, yeah, I need to use price per square foot on this one versus typically I wouldn't have or whatever.
You kind of like learn how to dissect like certain properties in certain areas.
Yep.
Find what works.
Okay, so let's see now, let's go to under contract and backup to see, that's the next thing that I look at, is I want to see what is currently either under contract or in as a backup, and there's nothing right now. So that's not going to help us at all, right? The only thing that I always do, and it probably won't matter, but is take out the number of days back. Yeah, it's still there. Okay. Next then, so now, but if there were, so let's actually talk about, if there were some that were either under contract or in backup, then I would have gone through the same concept, just seeing, are they comparable? How are they better? How are they worse? And kind of what's their price? We don't know what price they sold for on a backup or an under contract, but we know it at least generated an offer. And that's huge for me, because I know that at least enticed a buyer to make an offer.
Do you ever have a conversation to say there was something that's active or backup that you reach out to the listing agent and kind of see where they're at? Like, is that something that you've ever done?
Yeah, good question. So James is asking if you would ever call one of the people that's in an under contract or a backup. Yes, absolutely.
I just got that call from like, because our listing in Spanish Fork is the first one, so I played. It's like, hey, my son's gonna sell his house later. What are you gonna sell for? Like, I can't tell you yet.
Yeah, yeah. So what I will do typically is a lot of times if I'm unsure of something or whatever, I may call them and ask, hey, how much activity did you get? Have you had a ton of showings? How many offers did you get? Like, I'll try to call and ask even, yeah, what price did you
I've
end up
gotten a
getting
price
for it?
before. I've gotten one.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll even start it and word it like, hey, did you have any unrepresented buyers that you want to come through? I'm listing a similar proproperty. Do you have any unrepresented buyers that you would want to bring and get?
Like
first
that.
chance?
They're more willing to like. talk
Because
with you
now
about
you're
that,
like,
yeah.
hey, I'm trying to help you. Their mindset switch like, oh, well, there was Johnny who came and wanted to look, and then it kind of opens the door for you to ask. They'll be a little more.
Yeah, good. So let me restate that too for the Zoom, because that's really good. Is Douglas said a lot of times he'll call and even ask them, did you have any buyers that were unrepresented or that for whatever reason, do they know of anybody that wanted that house that didn't get it, that you could now bring them that direction? By doing that, then gets them to be willing maybe to share a little more because you started the conversation by trying to help them get a deal. Cool. All right. There, I will, where are we at time wise? Yeah, I'll show you one other thing that I would do in this scenario as well, but let's first finish this off. So the next thing I'm going to do is say, okay, I want to see what's active. And I was afraid that's what was going to happen. So nothing. There's no active properties within that 1 mile radius. So here's the question. What does that tell you about, just go to think of supply and demand economics. What does that mean we should be able to do with the price?
Run it up.
Completely jacked.
Yeah, so now we're back to where Douglas was saying 550, right?
Yep.
I would go check, just knowing, because you know buyers, like someone that's gonna buy in that neighborhood. they'll buy
You
in
should-
West
I'm-
Valley,
yeah,
they'll buy in
perfect.
Burns,
That's
they'll
where I was
buy
gonna
I'll
in
be honest, I would,
those
yeah,
west, so-
I would start by calling like the last listing if it was within like that month that closed, like this month, I would say, hey, did you get multiple offers? Is it even worth trying? Like, where the offers at?
Yeah,
Because
so-
they can disclose it after it's sold.
Yeah.
and you get information to start at.
Yeah, no, that's great. What Trevor's saying is just calling any of the other ones that were recently sold and how many offers did you get? Because that's going to give us an indication of there are still people there looking. So good. Okay. But here's what I would do as well is, again, we started this whole thing looking at it the way an appraiser does. So far, that's kind of, other than we looked at the under contracts, backups and actives, but an appraiser typically is not going to do that. They're only looking at the sold. But how often is a buyer that's going to buy where this house is at going to only look within that 1 mile radius? Yeah, typically not. So now, because I still want to try to figure out, should we push the price a little more? Instead, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to expand that area. So I'm going to go back to the view map. I'm going to delete out this search that we did here. First, let me zoom out a little. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to say, let's do this drawing tool. We'll go kind of down Mountain View corridor here. I may even wanted to go further out, but oops, stop sharing. Uh-oh. Did I stop sharing?
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, guys. That was just so we could check in and make sure you still have your cameras on. Okay. Zoom out a little bit more. So I'm gonna go even further down here. We'll go all the way over to Bangor Highway here. Follow along that. And let's see what we get here. There's still no active properties in Woods. See if we get any.
I don't know if I believe that. I don't know.
What else do you have clicked?
Yeah, what else is like scroll down? I don't know. Is it have any garage capacity stuff still in there?
Is it what?
Yeah, at most 2.
No. Yeah, your bill,
Take
square
off your
foot,
bill.
you have all that stuff in there still, which is really comparable, but.
Let's just go to 1985.
And I would take the garage capacity out. On both ends.
Well, we'll see.
Hey,
It's thinking about it.
yeah, we got something.
It's gonna pop.
Nothing.
Square
So-
footage, maybe?
This is actually scary.
It is, it is.
Go door knock that area.
Something.
Yeah, go door knock.
Something's glitched. There's no way there's no problem.
I feel like that's also true.
Well, let's try. I'm gonna go southwest. I'm gonna do all southwest. Let's get rid of the map altogether.
Yeah, because it's because you still have under contract and backup.
So it just shouldn't matter. All right, let's start over.
I showed a house there. over the weekend.
All right, we're just gonna start.
You're like, I
over.
was just there.
Literally there.
It was still pop up. It's
Oh,
on
it's
the
been
drive.
dropped.
Yeah, unless they just cancel off the market.
Yeah, they removed it.
I'm just gonna say 10 miles. From
10
there.
miles, we will find all of them.
Well, since we weren't getting anything, let's see if that gets us.
More than 300, perfect.
I mean, I don't know that I can keep it at 10 miles now.
No, I'm not going to, but I just wanted to make sure that. Let's throw in our square footage and stuff here.
So I've had this Starbucks card for like years. Turns out it's my brother's card. So like I'll see like money go in and out of it for
Alright.
years. I've always been like, just not figured it out. It's been a few year-long mystery.
Yeah, but something was screwy because there's a few
Yeah.
properties
No,
there.
I just went all out.
So we'll get rid of that. We'll just do it like this.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. So back up and under contract, we've got 7. So now let's see. We might not want to go that far.
Oh, West Jordan.
Oh, yeah. They're all West.
Hang on, I'm gonna change this. I don't want to be that far south. All right, that's better. Okay, so now let's just quickly. So this one's a 429. 455. 459. 474. Yeah, I don't like that one. Although 499, that's interesting.
It's the same square footage as the one out of.
That looks like a Rambler, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't, well, to look at it, I think that it is, it's more of a front to back split, I think. Let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just split. That is a weird.
Interesting.
Knock that.
All right. So based on that, what do you think price wise? When you look at these,
Man,
does that change your mind?
468.
Sticking at
You're still at 550?
Since I'm the best agent for the job, I can start at 600.
8% commission.
And then 10%.
What do you guys think?
still think-
What about Zoom? What do you think, price? You changing your mind or no?
I think I can still justify mine at 465 and
I think honestly, 470 or up.
Okay,
Having been in that impressions one, this one's nice.
Yeah.
you
That's a
went
good
to
point.
this one?
but I
That was
also
Kelly Ben's old house.
This one's not.
Yeah, oh. different one.
How much was Kelly and Ben's listed at?
500.
It wasn't 500?
Yeah, wow.
That's so nuts. Why did I sell?
All
All
right,
right,
that's crazy. I was actually just looking at that house and all this.
were you?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the other contracts. So again, for me, when I'm looking at these ones, I'm saying, okay, at least those prices generated an offer. Okay, so now let's see what would we be competing against in that same area. Wonder why they wasn't nothing.
Nothing.
Wait, go back. Hit that drop down, do you still have under contract and everything also selected? Or is
No.
it just active? Interesting.
Yeah, when if you click on this line, it deletes it. So. Let's just do real quick, just for the fun of it, in the last 30 days, using that same criteria, how many sold and where were they at? So 450, in the last 30 days, these, in that, using all that same criteria, there's where they sold at. Versus. We come here and look at the backup and under contracts.
Do you want to go in between these, or do you want? How do you like? Because like I don't know. What I think about it is like kind of take the average of all the averages. Think of like the average of like the sold, average of the under contract, average of the.
See, and I don't do, I personally, I know there are a lot of agents that do that. I don't do the average because I kind of feel like we're not saying this house is average necessarily, and the average will change if I drop this property out and just use these. Or drop, if I drop these two out, then I'm gonna be more back to here, so.
You could also change it because there's 3 properties above 1,800 square feet. You could do below 1,700 gone.
Yeah, something like that. The other thing though here's what I would say is, for me, really, I think kind of the best thing to do would be to call through these agents and asking the question of how many offers did you get on those properties? Because if they're all getting 10 offers, that would say we probably can be pretty aggressive on the price.
So the other question I have is I'm looking at days on market too. The one that sold for the highest was on the market for the longest, which makes me think that they didn't get as many offers right up front. Does that ever play into it at all?
Well,
It's
so,
currently actually on backup. Yeah, it's on backup.
yeah,
But I could be wrong with that.
but I was gonna say, the other thing I always like to look at on that, I usually, in that scenario, the longer days on market, I would want to look at it to see,
Oh, yeah.
had they started at a higher price and dropped it down or something, but yeah,
You're right.
they did,
Yeah,
because it was only really
Yeah.
6
okay.
days they had an offer. So now what would you list it at? 550 still?
Well, if it's,
No, I
if
see
it's
that.
a 9, then.
I'd probably start at like, oh man, yeah, like almost 5.
Would you?
Yeah, probably like 490.
Yeah, that's, this one is throwing me off a little bit, the
I
499.
wouldn't go above 5 for sure, but maybe it start at 490, yeah. If it's at 9, if it looks really nice, 490.
Yeah, so for me, that's where I would want to be talking to this agent. The other thing probably I would say, and I don't know that we did it, so let's do real quick. Let's take a look at the condition on it and stuff.
Well, does it show the original list?
That one wasn't great condition, because that's the awkward layout.
Oh, yeah, we did look at
It
that,
is,
huh?
yeah.
The other thing too, with days on market is if you see something that was listed at like 475 and then was snatched up in 3 days, does that also say, hey, you should list it closer to that?
Probably, yeah.
Or higher, because
Or
there's
higher, yeah.
competition, yeah.
Yeah, if there's that much
I mean,
competition.
that's the
at that
thing is,
price.
with this, we didn't
It's
look at the
pretty, it's
kitchens.
fairly updated, yeah.
That's pretty nice.
So yeah, I mean, based
It's
on
just
that,
such an awkward layout.
it is just a different layout.
He's a gamer.
He's a gamer.
My girlfriend's like a Twitch streamer. She's like, all that stuff.
Oh, really?
Isn't that cool?
That's sweet.
That nerdy girlfriend.
Well,
She's like all on the anime too.
So yeah, here's the thing. I think based on the fact that there is nothing for sale. Yeah, I think you could
Shoot for the moon.
you could shoot for a bit higher of a price and really kind of just looking at that and this. I mean, especially when you look at this, based on what we said our condition was, I would say, yeah, probably you could list it at 500 and see what happens, which is crazy.
But I know
So-
like Chad Wagstaff puts a lot of weight on like what's currently on the market.
Mhm.
And gauges, okay, because these are like exactly like these guys we're not competing with.
Right.
And so they're kind of irrelevant. So basing it, he bases it, and I know that's where we're going next. but-
Well, no, there's nothing to,
Oh,
you're
there's
right.
nothing there's
Yeah,
just
I
nothing.
would do that. Yeah, you're right on. Is for me, I would put more weight on what are we competing against? Because again, that's where I said to you, when the buyers go out, that's what they're having to figure out is but there's no choices. So,
And that was,
Yeah,
that's like
it's
what you're saying
nuts.
about like the looking back in time at the stocks and stuff, right? It's
yep. Yep. So, I mean,
Did you try again?
uh-huh. Yep.
I'll try.
Is that like, how do you say that? Ochre?
Ochre. Yeah.
Ochre? Ochre?
Yeah,
I see a lot.
see
That's why I was
those,
like,
well, those mountains right there
yeah.
are the ochre mountains.
Oh.
That's why it's called.
All right, tell me this. Someone told me a long time ago, and I never fact checked it, but there's like radioactive mountains over there.
And there's a,
Well, what do you mean by radioactive?
Like you go over there, you live there, you could like, you know, grow an extra arm or something.
Oh, no.
is this what you tell your clients? or-
No, I just remember hearing that a long time ago, and I just never thought about it. I was like,
Yeah, no.
So then if you don't.
The
have-
water out there is different though in Magna.
So if there are no
There used to
active
be, yeah.
listings there, would you find another area that's similar to that?
So yeah, good question. So we could do that. The other thing that I probably would do in this scenario is I probably would say, let's do this. Let's get
Yeah,
rid
take
of
that off.
the style altogether. So there's still 0 properties that are that size.
Get rid of the size.
That's what I was gonna say is I probably wouldn't get rid of the size.
You just expand.
Just for now, so you can at least get stuff.
Like, if you go to like, if you expand to like 100 on either side, or like 50.
So.
It's just build shouldn't matter, because all those homes are built in that same.
So with getting rid of the bottom square footage gets us 4, but yeah, I guess let's just see what it does. Total in that whole area, there's only 6 properties. So here's where what we would want to do is look at it and go, okay. But when you look at that, you see they're really, I mean, much smaller, a bit bigger.
So all those are, so basically just whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't help. So typically, yes, I would try to do that, but honestly, it
Like I
doesn't seem
said,
to. Yeah.
so like I said, 550. I back it.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Show me a different.
If I'm your seller, dude, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
All right.
Why not 6?
Okay, that's.
Okay. all
He said that's what we
right.
draw the line.
So anyway,
Now,
all right.
now we draw the line.
What questions? Any questions?
Oh, Miriam. Oh, Miriam. Is she at her desk right now?
Miriam?
You're cheating. You're prospecting well. She's getting ahead of the game already.
Let me be.
All right. Any questions, comments? I know I should leave that up there for you guys to be able to see them.
It's like the full class. Yo, what's up, babe? Yo, deuces. Hi, Kristen. Hi, iPhone. Lindsay, Jason.
Let's say you have a house that's active on the market and you know somebody's gonna sell soon, that would be a really good comp that would you ever hold off the appraisal for that specific, if you could, like, right? Like if you're currently under contract and you know it's gonna sell, it's gonna close in a couple days. Would that be beneficial to the situation?
Yeah, I've had scenarios and not very often, but I have had scenarios where I knew a property was gonna close and I'd called and talked to the agent, found out what it was gonna sell for and then knew, yeah, that'll be able to help us on the appraiser. But typically I haven't had that until after I already knew there was a problem on the appraisal. To where I've said, hey, this other property is gonna close next week, you know, and I've called the appraiser and said, if I know this one's gonna close for this price and tried to get it to them to change it. And I had the one where they said, no, I have to wait till it's actually closed. So we just did an extension to get the deal to happen, because it wouldn't have appraised otherwise.
Why is there such a big difference between the appraisals and, I guess it's just an opinion to a degree, right? But like when it comes to the loan type, like FHA versus conventional, I've had an issue one time where an appraisal, actually twice, where FHA came in really low, conventional came in much higher. Is there a certain reason for that? Like,
Depends on the appraiser, just, yeah, every appraiser is a little different, so.
Are there appraisers that explain? So I don't know very much how they work. Is there like some that do specifically FHA and like that kind of stuff, or they do it all?
For the most part, they do it all, but no, there are certain ones that are not FHA approved or VA approved. appraisers.
Oh, good.
Some are.
Yeah, some that shouldn't be. All right. Okay, that's it.
CE
Unless you
credit,
guys have
we have
questions.
CE credit? Very good half. She could have been down here.
0.75.
She's out here just trying to call the pond before we all do.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Whatever,
So, okay, so
Jeremy.
just as a reminder, before everybody jumps off, so next classes are Wednesday, Friday. Okay, Wednesday, Friday, 10 o'clock. I'm gonna be able to record it, but Jason Carlson and Rob.
You on vacation? Nice. Enjoy it.
Okay. We're what? Yeah, we're going to look at properties so we can write it off. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, Russ.
See you later.
Thanks, Russ. I'm off to Disneyland.
Now I got people to back me on my taxes, like if I ever get audited, I said it in the class.
Yeah, we got it recorded.
Yeah. I called a lead yesterday.
Uh-huh.